Well, what's up everybody? I am glad to see that you're here. I'm glad you're going to hang out with me for a little while today. I do want to share with you the place where everything changed as far as my perspective on building a coupe to fastback Mustang. And it was in the process of building this fastback that you see behind me that my eyes were open to one reality. There's just not good information out there for how to build a fastback Mustang. And there's a lot of information. It's in a lot of different places. You got to cherry pick it. And I've noticed that there's a lot of really great garages that are making videos about building Mustangs. But in all reality, the truth is that they're not making great videos. Is the problem is that they're so good at doing the work, they're not necessarily good at making a video. And part of the reason why is that I've just found that they're not thinking from the perspective of somebody who, is a novice, who's starting out. So I start from the very beginning of this. If you've never been a part of this channel, what you're going to find is my name is Scott Harness. This is not a channel with a name on it right now. I don't know that I'll ever do that. This is not a business. I don't build Mustangs for a living. I'm a regular Joe just like you. I'm a preacher by trade, getting ready for Easter this week. Preacher by trade. I share the gospel with people. That's my job and role in life, and that's my purpose God has given me. But I build Mustangs as a break, and I enjoy messing with these old Mustangs. And I love, converting these coupes to fastbacks. I do, man. It's a lot of fun. But there was a certain point in my build, in my Mustang build, that what I realized is that if I were going to really know how to do this, I was going to need to find some good solid information, and I couldn't find it in any one particular spot. So what I began realizing I realized that I'm going to put that together. I'm going to make it a little bit easier, and I'm going to put together a few builds, but I'm going to go through the process as chronologically as I can and give you pertinent information that I didn't know. And today we're going to talk about window measurements, and that's what we're going to look at today. And I think it's going to be a humdinger of a deal, y'all. We're going to just look at this little dude right here. By the way, I told you guys to begin with that we're going to name this Enigma. That's what I call the Mustang, but I've had a change of heart, okay? And the Mustang has a new name, and this is going to be his permanent name. This is the Born Again Mustang, and I think that fits who I am as a person. But I think also it fits this car. This car was a coupe that was probably not going to go any further than where it was. It was probably going to sit there. The value of investing large sums of money in a coupe is going to be a tough one to get back for you, just to be honest with you. And I know coupe people will be upset about that. But you convert it to a fastback and boom, it's worth some investment. You got the car that you always dreamed of. And I think a lot of you guys that are following this channel, you're in the same place I've been. I remember when I was about 16 years old, walking down a street beside my house, and there was sitting on the side of the road, it was a light blue 67 fastback Mustang, didn't have a motor in it, and somebody just moved into a trailer that was there. They were living there, and they brought their car with them, and it was sitting there. It was, the front end's high in the air, it doesn't have a motor transmission in it, and I was like, man, that's a sick looking car. It was a decent looking car. And I remember making contact with the owner. He was a guy probably in his 20s. He was in his 20s, and I said, hey, listen, I'd like to buy that car. I was like, surely he'd want to sell that thing to me. And he did. He said he'd sell it for $3,000, a fastback Mustang. And I thought, man, that's cool. But you know what's crazy? $3,000 back then was a ton of money. So fast forward, and by the way, I never bought the car. Fast forward, I got a hankering to start working on cars again. I used to mess with cars when I was a kid. I worked for a speed shop when I was in high school, and we just built cars when I was younger. Never professionally, just what we did. And I made up my mind I was going to get a fastback Mustang. I'd wanted one my whole life. I've had several fastback Mustangs, but I always wanted a 1968 or 67 fastback Mustang in particular, and I'd never really owned one of those. And I wanted one badly. And so when I started looking at them, I was like, I'm going to buy a fastback Mustang. And when I started looking around, I found that the $25,000 fastback Mustangs were completely rusted out, which, by the way, was out of my budget too. I was thinking in my mind, you buy a fastback Mustang that's rusted out, no motor, it's going to need a bunch of restoration. I was thinking $5,000-$6,000. Okay, I know people are laughing, but that's what I was thinking, $5,000-$6,000. Then I can have something to mess with and work on. Well, You can't get one for that price. It's impossible. $20,000 they're still rusted out. $25,000 they may be rusted out. Now you get in that $30,000-ish range, you know, 29, 30,000. You could get a Mustang that's not a fastback that's not completely rusted out, but that's a realm that I wasn't interested in. That's too much money. I have a family. I'm not going to spend all my. I want a fastback, but I'm not going to spend that. So I was in the same conundrum I was in when I was 16 years old. I can't afford it. And so what I did was I decided I was going to just build a coupe, and I was going to settle for a coupe. And so I bought a coupe. I found one, and I went and bought it. And I spent $2,700. No, sorry, $2,700. I think is what I paid for it. Yeah, it was $2,700. I got 3 cars, 2 junky parts cars, a pretty decent coupe, and a ton of parts. And didn't realize how good a deal that was at the time, but it was a pretty doggone good deal. And so I bought it and I started working on it. And I was going to start really stripping it down, getting it ready to go. And the more I talked and I had a discussion with a guy from church, he said, have you seen where they convert those to a fastback? And I was like, man, I guarantee that's way over my head. It's not possible. It's too intimidating. But I started looking at it. I started watching a few videos, and I would see bits and snippets and pieces on different channels where people were converting these Mustangs. I was like, okay, some people converting these Mustangs. That's not a bad deal. So let's convert them. Let's see what it looks like. And so I was going to buy the Dynacorn full body that was all together. You know, the chassis and everything was there together. And well, it was like $22,000, $23,000, not including shipping. I was like, there's no way. Once again, it's out of my price range. And but then I started looking at buying the parts, and I found different companies that sold the kit, you know, which Dynacorn doesn't sell the kit. That distributor just puts the part numbers together. And if you need those part numbers so that you can just order your parts that you need, I've got that on another video. And well, you can email me, and my information will be in the description. And so I bought the kit. I ordered it. It took about 5 months, 6 months for the parts to come in. And when the parts came in, we started tearing down a coupe and started building a fastback. And I was selling parts, and I was putting this together. And when I got done, when I was halfway through this process, I realized there just isn't good information about this conversion. And it seems so big and so ominous. It was just a frightening thing. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to start making videos about the conversion. Here's the thing, though. My car was already this far along. Now, the body's not welded on, and it's all got to come back off because I'm still building rear frame rails and suspension in the back and some things that I wouldn't do if I were you. I would not do that. I would go back with the factory stuff. But anyway, and so I thought, I'm too far along in it, but I'm going to start putting information out, because what I found is there's critical parts to this build that you really need the information on. Now, I'm going to say this to you. One of the critical parts, and this is where my great mistake happened, is window opening, knowing the measurements for the window opening. And that's what I'm going to focus on right now, is I want to show you and talk to you about these window openings. Why is the window opening so important? The window openings, number one, you can't stretch glass, and you're not going to cut your window glass down. It's important that the window openings dictate where your quarter door assembly, whether it's square or not. So you have to have the window the right dimensions, but then it has to be square, and I'm going to show you how to measure that as well. All that's going to be really important. When your back glass opening and your windshield opening are what they should be, the measurements are correct, then you can and I'm going to show you a couple of places where you're going to index that quarter door frame assembly. You're there 99. If you've got those window openings right, if your door gaps are right, your front window opening is right, you're right. You're good. You don't have to go any further. You're set. It's ready to move forward. And so I'm going to show you how to do that. You need these measurements. These are important measurements. These measurements are not from my car. They're from an original fastback car. These measurements are from an original fastback Mustang. I have heard people say that there are some minor variances even in these measurements. What I believe is if you get it spot on, you get these measurements spot on for your window openings, then your the glass is going to fit. No matter where you get your glass, if it's NOS glass or if it's aftermarket glass, it's going to fit if it has the factory window openings, and that's what I'm going to give you is the factory measurement. So without any further ado, let's look at this together. Okay, so here's some critical stuff, and I'll show you some things that I do that helps me. So you've got your window opening, your rear window opening, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, and we're going to be talking about your front window opening. Now remember, and we've already discussed this as we went, if your side panel toe kick, your A-pillar, and your actual windshield frame is good, you're not cutting it out of your coupe, and these measurements won't matter to you. If you leave the frame rail for the frame for the top of the windshield, and you leave the A-pillar and everything intact, right here is a seam underneath here. Well, let's see. You see that seam right there? That seam is where you're going to separate it on your coupe. Whoop, let me get my hand out of there. And that's exactly where you're going to... that's where this quarter door assembly for the fastback, it does change. From about here back, it's different between the coupe and the fastback as far as the frame that I just showed you, that the inner structure. So what you're going to do is separate it right here at these pinch welds. You're going to scab in that fastback quarter door upper frame. If your B-pillar is good, you're not taking it out either. We've already discussed this. That's in the last video. I'm going to tell you to do that. But I did. I replaced the entire, I bought the Dynacorn all welded up rear quarter door assembly frame, and I would not recommend doing that if I'm you. I'd buy the one that you weld yourself, and I would only use the pieces that I needed. And if you want to slow yourself down and make your head hurt, then do what I did. But if these pieces are good, don't replace them. I've got surface rust, Scott. What do I do with the surface rust? You get a wire wheel and you wire wheel it off, you put a little treatment on it, and you blow primer on it, and you go forward and you get it done. Otherwise, this thing sits in your garage and never gets done. So anyway, for me, I needed windshield measurements, okay? So this is where I have a problem, all right? So here's the windshield measurements. What I do on my car, so on your windshield, you're going to have 3 measurements that you're going to have to pay attention to on this windshield frame. Now, I've got 2 measurements, okay, on each one of these stickers, except for this one. Don't worry about this one. But on each one of these pieces of tape, I've got 2 measurements. This one is, you see 50 and a half, you're going to see 48 inches. Okay, 50 and a half is at the hip. The hip is the top part of where the bend is. That's what I call a hip. This is the lip. Now, I've measured from the outside edge of this. Lip, hip, hip, lip, okay? So you have a top measurement. Your top measurement, measuring straight across, not trying to imitate the windshield. You're going to measure straight across to the other side from hip to hip on the top should be 50 and a half inches. That's out of a factory fastback, but the measurements are the same for a coupe, by the way. The windshield is not different on a coupe or a fastback. So from hip on this side to hip on that side, and that's right on the edge of the hip, straight across where your tape measures as close to the roof as it can possibly be. Your measurement should be 50 and 1/2 inches. From lip to lip, your measurement should be 48 inches, okay? Now, your diagonal measurement, now this is where you're going to measure to make sure your windshield's square. Your diagonal measurement should be 54 inches, and that's measured from lip to lip. So the edge of the lip to the edge of the lip is 54 inches. Now, on the bottom of your windshield, because remember, your windshield's tapered. Remember, it comes in. Your windshield's tapered to make sure that the base of this is indexed where it's supposed to be. From your hip, this is just a couple inches up from the bottom, so maybe 3 fingers up, measure over. From your hip to the hip on the other side, and remember, you're just measuring straight across. You're not worrying about trying to imitate the windshield. Straight across. Hip measurement's 56 inches. Your lip measurement should be around 53 inches. But if you look on here, see there's excess metal, and that's from a factory welded in deal. So there may be a little bit of variance on the lip part, but the hip part is really, really important because that's how your windshield's going to fit, your windshield gasket, and your trim. It's going to be really important that that's right. Mine is wrong on the top. I'm a 1/2 inch off. So I've got to cut my inner structure in the middle. Actually, I got to drill it out right here. We welded it right here. We're going to have to cut that out, separate it 1/2 inch, and re-weld it. That's because I didn't know on the front end. So that's these measurements for the windshield. Now let's go to the back glass. All right, again, I put this blue tape on here. Helps me keep track of what my measurements should be. So from on the back, I only measure from the hip. I didn't worry about the lip in the back. I worried about the lip in the front, and I've got reasons for it. But anyway, I'm only measuring the hip. So from in the back, from the hip, from the bottom of your windshield to the hip, on the other side, straight across, is 42 1/8. This should be 42 1/8 across here. Your top measurement, now that's down below, just below where your roof panel seams in. I measure just below that from the hip to the hip on the other side is 45 3/4. So it's 45 3/4 straight across this way. Your diagonal measurement on your back window opening is 54 inches. And you're going to measure this way, and then you're going to measure this way. That number needs to be the same, otherwise it's not square. Same thing for the windshield. The diagonal measurement, you're going to measure this way, you're going to measure this way. Those diagonal measurements across like that is going to help you understand and indicate whether or not this is square. Now this is an important number right here. This number right here, 33 1/2, that's from the base hip of your windshield to the hip of the base of your roof is 33 1/2 inches. Okay? That's gigantically important for you. And let me tell you why. This roof and it's from all of them. It doesn't matter if you get it from Dynacorn or who, but that roof right there actually is really bad about kind of bubbling up. All right? So if you can look right here, it bubbles up a little bit. So what that does is, two things you're going to do for this roof panel to be good on your car. Number one, you're going to push it back as far as you possibly can. You're going to make sure this one's too far forward. I'd have to actually have both hands. But it's got to go all the way back, far as you can get it. All right? Far as you can get it. You're going to take this roof panel, far as you can get it, all the way back, okay, till it butts up against the frame underneath it. All right? Once you get that done, you're going to go ahead and run a screw in it or clamp it. I'd probably just screw it. Once you get that done, then what you're going to do, before you anchor it in the back, you're going to press it down really good, and then you're going to measure from here to here. Almost always, this number is off. That roof has a lot of flex in it, and you may have to put a ratchet strap across the top. You may have to do whatever, may have to have somebody kind of lean in on the top of it. I mean, obviously not caving it in, but you may have to have something, because you need that lip to come down to where you get this number. Now, to make sure that your filler panel is where it's supposed to be. So you got to get to this 33 1/2. But before, just to make sure that the filler panel is where it's supposed to be, you can measure from the front, the hip, top hip of the filler panel to the front edge of your roof here, just right here. And you can measure this from here to the top of that filler panel. That should be 78 3/4 inches. Okay, so that makes sure that the filler panel is indexed. And once the filler panel is indexed, then you're going to measure this filler panel top hip here to the hip on your roof, and you've got to get to 33 1/2. And it's all going to be in the roof. I can tell you right now, you get this one way off, and what happens is you weld it in, then you got to cut this thing and you got to add to it. You just don't want to do that. Get that roof flattened out a little bit, make sure it's pulled back enough, do whatever you need to do to get that done. Get to this 33 1/2, and that gives you your window openings. If your window openings are these within the tolerance of these measurements, your diagonal measurements are accurate, then your inner structure frame can't be anything but square as far as it sets on top of the car. Now, your inner structure, if you left your window frame in like I've suggested, and you tie your inner structure in here, then it's already indexed this way, where you can see it this way. But if you're using like mine, I use the whole inner structure frame. There's index holes at the front here. You'll see right here. This is an index hole. Do you see that? That's an index hole. There's an index hole right here, and there's an index hole right here. And then you also can just look at how it fits within there. Now remember, this structure goes actually way back up underneath the lower window frame area. And this has all got to get ground down. This is just set in there, it's just welded in. So my inner structures are welded in, but anyway, did y'all see those Mustang Mike door hinges? I did some pictures of those. I should have done a video of that when I built those. Those are worth their weight in gold. So. Well, anyway, that's all I've got for today. We got the measurements down. I am going to future video. I've got to get the sheet metal done in the back of my car. Right there is a Harbor Freight sheet metal bender. I didn't want to buy an expensive one because I don't do a lot of sheet metal work if I can get out of it. But soon, very soon, that big piece of 18 gauge is going to turn into a bunch of little bitty pieces, and I'm going to get the inside of my car done, body welded on. My objective is by the end of the summer have the interior completely done as far as the metal work done. Rear chassis completely welded in and ready to go. All my brake lines run. all the body welded on. So I've got a lot to do this summer, so I'm hoping I can get a little bit more time as we keep going forward. But anyway, hope things are well with you. Like and subscribe. If I can help you in any way, just let me know. I love the comments. I always talk back, and so leave a comment if you have a question. I don't mind answering them. So anyway, God bless you.